Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here, and you're on my show Where Truth Lies. And I'm so excited to have this special guest here because Amy is a good friend of mine. I've known her, can you believe it's been 8 years?
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. Holy mackerel. Wow.
So she's really cool because I think of her as, I think of like Green Acres. This is a woman who grew up on the Upper East Side and went to all these schools in in Manhattan. And now she lives in Vermont and farms. And that was her dream. It's
Yes.
really funny because most people think of people in Vermont dreaming to go to New York City.
I did the opposite.
She did
Yep.
the opposite. So she has 30 years of trailblazing experience in green living and holistic health. She's also advocating for healthier, non-toxic, free lifestyles. She's been featured on HGTV and Vermont Public Television and Radio. She brings her expertise to the forefront of, and I will also say it is a very down home approach. She was the technical editor of Green Living for Dummies in 2008 and founding executive director of a nonprofit launched by Seventh Generation, so people know the Seventh Generation products. And she's been a catalyst for meaningful change. So I've been to her farm and I've done her farm tours, and she's really amazing. And she has the best salad dressing.
Oh,
I
thank
make
you.
her
Thank
make
you.
it for me all the time. But she's done so much, and I'd love for you to share with people really where you started from and how did you
Yeah.
get from Manhattan to this desire to
Great
be on
question.
a farm.
Yes. So for me, growing up in Manhattan I was a fish out of water. I did not like city life, although, there were definitely cool things about living in Manhattan as far as culture, and you could eat at any kind of food restaurant, from food around the world. There was restaurants in New York that you could taste that. And my stepfather was a chef, and my mom was really into Adele Davis. She was a nutrition expert back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And so we didn't eat junk food. My stepfather taught us how to cook from scratch, which I've been doing ever since. And we, we basically didn't have, except for Halloween candy. We didn't really have any of the normal processed foods that many families were having at that time. So I felt lucky. I did escape to my dad's and stepmother's occasionally to eat some junk. So I was not a totally clean palate. But when I was 16, I had my first summer job and I worked at a health food store on the Upper East Side. And that was such a cool awakening. So I learned about organic food there. I learned about all these vitamins and supplements. I even did a fruit juice and water fast for like 10 days. And I learned a tiny bit about household products. I remember shampoo. I switched to, I think it was Nature's Gate back then. And that was an awesome awareness that I got from that experience. And then fast forward, I had moved to Massachusetts. I escaped New York as soon as I could. When I went to college, in Massachusetts, stayed in Massachusetts for a bunch of years. And when I was pregnant with my daughter Diana, I came upon this little paperback book called The Non-Toxic Baby. And I learned that there were all these toxic chemicals in everyday household products, like the shampoos and the carpets and the cleaning products and pretty much everything that we purchase and bring into our home or build our homes
Right.
from.
One of the
And
things that was most shocking to me was Johnson
yeah.
and Johnson's baby
Ah,
shampoo has
and the talc.
formaldehyde and the talc the formaldehyde in it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
FDA does not
Baby
have
products.
baby products, and they don't
Yes.
have any oversight from the FDA.
Right, and there's no testing that's really happening, and any testing is typically done by the manufacturer, so they're not really going to tell us the results until there is harm that happens, and then it's a long process. Even when they found a product has been, toxic, and there are many still on the market, but it takes a really long time to get that stuff off the shelf. And they give the manufacturers time to sort of sell it out before they remove it. So I not only was I shocked, I was pissed. I was like, wait a minute. How come nobody's talking about this? How come nobody's protecting us from this? And why are so many of these chemicals banned in other countries but allowed in the US? And so I just started this research project where I read everything that I could at that time, and there wasn't a ton because this is, 30 years ago, well, actually 32 years ago. And I found a few books. I found some websites like the Environmental Working Group was a great find. I also started doing some activism. So I was living in this little seacoast community in Massachusetts called Marblehead. And as I was learning all this information, I had to share it with people. And so I started writing these letters to the editor, which at the time was the most read part of a newspaper. And so I got this whole conversation going in this town. And typically, the Better Living Through Chemicals folks were the ones that would respond and try to fight with me publicly. So
Wow.
that was fairly entertaining. And so then I took a lot of the knowledge that I had amassed at this point, besides, basically rehabbing everything in my home or just tossing out all the anything that was toxic and starting over with the things that I found to be the least toxic. And then I did this big Earth Day celebration. So that was my first event. I had green workshops, I had green vendors, I had organic food and live music. I even had my CSA farmer. CSA is this community supported agriculture where you purchase shares at an organic farm and then, there's different ways that it works. But back then you got a box every week. And so I had that farmer come and shear a sheep just to kind of tie the whole agricultural thing into it. And to your question, how did I get from New York City to Vermont? I had always had this dream of living in a beautiful rural place that was really focused on health. And so it was kind of between Vermont and California. And I felt like California had too many risks, with the earthquakes and wildfires, and it was very crowded and expensive and really far from my family. And so Vermont, I had gotten to see in the wintertime because my dad and his wife would rent a ski house, in different places. So I was really impressed by how beautiful Vermont was and how sort of natural it was and still is. And it has that mix of kind of old world living, especially with my husband and his family who, have been here forever and
Aren't
were
they,
dairy
is he a
farmers.
fourth or fifth generation farmer?
So fifth generation for maple sugar. His
Wow.
dad I think his dad was the first dairy farmer. So, of course, Dave, being the only son out of four kids, became his assistant. And he's the first organic farmer in the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you got to Vermont, but you
Yeah.
didn't
So I
know
got to
Dave,
Vermont in
but you didn't
2001.
know Dave yet.
No, no, I was married to somebody else. I was married to my former husband, Paul, and I had actually convinced him to move to Vermont, which was kind of a big lift because his job was in Massachusetts and he had some opportunity to telecommute, but he still had to go back once a week. So that was nice of him. But our lifestyle was so much better here. We were able to afford a home on 10 acres that we would never have been able to in Massachusetts, and so in those first few years, that's when I started my business, Green Living Now, and was writing a newsletter and doing consultations. So I would actually go to somebody's home and, typically we'd start in the kitchen and look what's underneath the underneath the sink, all the different products. And I would tell people about what the risks were and what they could use instead. And my most famous client was actually one of the band members from Fish,
Oh,
which was really fun.
that
It was
is
actually
funny.
technically it was his girlfriend, but yeah, it
Okay.
was his house. Um, and then I had the opportunity to be the technical editor for the Green Living for Dummies book. I can't even remember exactly how they found me, but I also had my almost Oprah moment. Do you remember this story?
I remember that.
Yeah, so I got a call. I mean it seems surreal to me when I tell the story. Like I can't
Yeah.
even believe that it happened. But I did get a call from one of her producers, and she was actually going to come up to Vermont and interview me about my green living lifestyle. Unfortunately, she ended up going with the nonprofit right before the appointment was set. But um it was so exciting just to even be on her radar. And so that was very fun. And then I did get hired by Seventh Generation to lead this nonprofit that the founder of Seventh Generation started called the Household Toxins Institute. And so that was exciting. We were going to hire these toxicologists who conveniently were in Vermont to test the so-called natural and the natural. And I say so-called because greenwashing being what it is, where the manufacturer, creates this lovely looking product that's really earthy and it says non-toxic and eco-friendly and all that stuff. And then you turn it around and you read the ingredients and you're like, wait a minute, I can't even pronounce that.
Right. Well, that
Those
just
things.
happened to me the other day. And by the way, I want to apologize to the audience. I have my son's two French bulldogs here.
So they're speaking.
They're barking in the background, so I hope they're not too distracting. But yeah, I got a
Just happens to.
recipe for making my own homemade laundry soap. And
Oh,
I went to
yeah.
look at the Castile soap, the bars of Castile soap, because you're supposed to grate it and add it to washing soda, borax, and baking soda.
Right.
And one of the brands had all these seed oils in it.
So that's so weird, Lisa, because I know when we spoke about that, I looked it up and I only looked up the liquid ones.
Yeah.
Okay, but continue with your story.
Yeah, so it was like cottonseed oil, no, or palm oil. It said organic palm seed oil. I was just shocked because the other Castile soaps were coconut oil, and there was another one made of olive oil. So I don't know what
Right.
makes it Castile if it's made from different products, but it said organic. And when I looked at the back, I was shocked at seeing seed oils because,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think Castile just means vegetable oil versus
okay,
beef tallow,
okay,
I think. So it could be any kind of vegetable oil.
okay.
Um, okay, that's interesting. All right, so you decided.
I just switched to a different one that was all coconut oil. It was
So, okay, so
100%.
I just looked it up. They say that the palm oil is sourced sustainably, being both organic and certified fair trade.
Right.
So,
But palm
organic
oil
palm
is not
oil.
supposed to be good for you, but I don't know on in your clothes or on your skin if that has a different impact versus ingesting it because they use palm oil for other things.
I think it does have a difference. Because I'm trying to think what kinds of products typically have palm oil in them that we
Food
eat.
products. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know it contains vitamin E, so that would be a good thing as far as the antioxidants in the soap. Um, and it has vitamin A. Hmm. I'm not. What are the things that you've heard are bad about
They're
it?
just the way they're processed, they can be they're industrial like cottonseed oil, palm
So I think
oil.
so that's the difference. This is not the highly processed hydrogenated palm oil, which is bad.
Okay.
This would be a fair trade, organically grown, because Dr. Bronner's is such a transparent company and they've been
Right.
just leaders in the industry for so long that I would be shocked, that they would use anything that was
Right.
detrimental.
It just surprised me and I
Yeah.
took a
I
step
mean, if it
back.
was canola or cottonseed
Yeah.
or, something like that. Ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm okay with that type of
No,
organic palm
it's
oil.
good to know because I use Dr. Bronner's and I like their
Yeah.
products.
Yeah, that was one of the first soaps I used when you've probably heard of the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, California.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got to spend a month there and that's where I got introduced to Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap. So whenever I use that, I always think of being in the showers down at the hot springs baths. 'Cause nice like sensory reminder.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you moved to Vermont and
Right. So I
then your
moved to
husband
Vermont.
was there. Yeah.
Right. And so then Paul and I got divorced and at this, shortly thereafter, I met Dave on Match.com, which I never thought I would ever be on a dating site and I wasn't on there for very long and he was
Uh-huh.
actually the only really decent person that I met on there. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe, I specified in my profile looking for somebody athletic and you know, I forget all the different attributes, but I ended up getting all these like fat, bald guys. I was like, wait a minute, they're not reading my profile at all. I want somebody that's, physically fit and athletic and, has whatever. So, yeah. So anyway, yes, here's this organic farmer, and here he is, like with a sleeveless shirt, holding a basket of lettuce. And I send the picture to my mom. I'm like, "What do you think about this guy?" She says, "Oh my God." She says, "That looks like a match made in heaven." Green living expert meets organic farmer, and he's pretty cute. So yeah, that was 15 years ago,
Wow. So, and
surprisingly.
congratulations, you guys finally recently
We
tied the
finally tied the
knot.
knot. Yes, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, it was awesome.
so now he used to have actual livestock, correct? He had
Right.
cows
So
and no longer.
Right. So when I met him, actually, he was with a couple of other couples, the Vermont Yak Company, and
Right.
they had this wild breed of these yaks that normally come from the Himalayas, but these came from Colorado. And they are sort of touted as the greenest red meat on the planet. And so they were raising them as, to become meat. And they had quite a run. I think it was 2 or 3 years. I don't remember how long it lasted, but it was a pretty intense experience. And I think one of the main reasons that they decided to end the company was because the burden tended to fall on Dave and then one other person who was at home next door, our neighbors who were also our friends, and they were part of the business. So Susan and Dave were the ones that were constantly having to rescue, the ones that escaped that started to run down Route 100, or, there was just a lot of things in the winter would happen, like pipes would freeze, so they couldn't get water to them. And, there was what they called the yak rodeo was this intense experience of trying to herd these wild beasts into a narrow passageway so they could put, dewormer on them or give them whatever medications they might need. So there were a few times where people got flipped upside down because they got
Wow.
rammed. Yeah. And there was some classic stories of being in the pasture. You always had to have a stick with you because you never knew if they were going to try to run at you. And there was a classic moment where Dave was being, you know, pursued
Charge.
by, I think it was a bull. And thankfully,
Wow.
Susan was coming by in her little 4x4 and he was able to jump in it and they got out just in time. But there were some pretty close calls.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is
it was
scary. I did not
crazy.
know that because I've actually
Yeah.
had that yak meat and it was delicious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the partners ended up keeping the name and turning it into a food cart sort of business.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so you probably had his burgers or sausage.
Yes. They
Yeah.
were very
Yeah,
good.
it was pretty tasty. I mean, it was kind of crazy. I think it was date number 2 or 3. I forget where we were supposed to go. I came dressed in a white mini skirt. Come to find out that they had to put one of the yaks down because she'd gotten injured. And so they had a person that was coming to butcher this yak, and we were going to all take this raw meat and package it into these shrink wrap bags. So here I am in my white mini skirt and whatever I was wearing for a top, with my hands, into
Covered
these
it.
into this flesh, which it was gross, I have to say. But at the same time, I really respected the animal for sacrificing her life or having her life
Mhm.
sacrificed. And they did it in the best possible way, the most respectful way. And thankfully it happened on the farm, so they didn't have to cart her off someplace
Right.
and have all that stress added onto what she was experiencing. But that's where I got to meet these wonderful people next door. And one of my best friends in the world, Judith, you probably remember, who's actually my mom's age. I became fast friends with her, and we saw each other every week for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you now help run this farm and it's made
Yeah.
so there's a farm stand and for you to understand for the listeners the whole Vermont culture, it's like if they're not there, there's a scale and there's a price
Right, but
and
not anymore.
oh,
So,
really?
so, uh,
That's too
so we
bad.
stopped doing that actually at right before COVID, I think. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I instituted, I said, we've got to have a staff person. This is, we're losing too much money, I'm sure. And, the experience was not great because then people had to kind of figure it out on their own. So starting with COVID, not only did we have it staffed all the time, we also started taking credit cards and Venmo, and so it became a whole different experience.
Okay.
So I got
Because
to
when I
control
first came, it was like just show up
it
and
was
buy,
crazy.
pick what you wanted and pay, and there was a
Yeah.
cash box, and I was
Yeah.
like,
This is
wow.
what the price is supposed to be, but who knows what people ended up paying. Yeah, it was kind of wild. But at the
So,
time, he just didn't have the ability to pay somebody to do the farm stand. So
well, I know.
thankfully that
So,
changed.
running a farm like this, I've seen Dave in action, one of the
Oh
hardest
my gosh.
working people I know, up at
Yes.
4 in the morning, and out there, and then probably
Yeah,
passed
because when
out.
we stayed
Yeah.
with you, he was still at the had the hydroponic business going
Yes.
as well as the organic farm. So yes, that's when he was getting up at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning to go harvest at the hydroponic and then start his day at the organic farm. And I do not know how he or we actually lived through that time. It was just
7 days a
intense.
week. He
Yeah.
didn't take a vacation for how many years?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I think we did get away. Yes, we did get away. Um, a few different times in December or January. So
Yeah,
we made sure that we got, to get a little bit of a break. But yeah, no, it was nuts.
it was insane. So
Yeah.
now you have put together some classes and things,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you do tours.
Right. So on the farm during the summer season, I do these kind of unique food and farm tours, which you experienced, where people get to, learn about organic agriculture. What is it? What do we do? What was the history of the farm? And they get to sort of taste their way through the crops, right? So, I've actually transformed little children's eating habits miraculously. One French family in particular had 3 kids, none of whom spoke any English, and I was told these children will not eat vegetables, but they tried them and they liked them and they actually ate them during lunch. And then I heard from the parents after they went and got home that these children were still eating vegetables and all they had to say was, "Oh, these are like Amy's and Dave's." So I was like, "Oh my God, transforming lives." But no, I have so much fun on those tours. And then we go to the hydroponic greenhouse, which is this big half-acre year-round facility that's pretty incredible when you walk in there. And we come up to the house here to see the house gardens. We talk about medicinal herbs. We kind of look down on what we're standing on grass-wise and talk about some medicinal herbs that are right there that are pretty awesome. And oh, the maple sugar house. So I do a whole maple sugar tour. And then we finish, if they choose, they can do the lunch tour where they get the homemade farm fresh lunch, or they can just do the tour without the lunch. So yeah, that's what I do in the summer besides running the farm stand. But I've really gotten super psyched about sort of distilling all of these years of information into these online courses. And so I have 3 of them. And the first one is the organic food blueprint. And I go into things like, I analyzed 100 different food labels to figure out which ones actually meant something, which ones were sort of useful, and which ones were completely useless, such as natural, right? So 73% of people polled thought natural meant, no GMOs, no pesticides, they thought it was more like the equivalent to certified organic. And in fact, it is totally meaningless. There's no regulations around it. And that's the case for a lot, like 30 some odd were completely useless, including wild caught. I used to think, I'd look on the tuna can and I'd see wild caught. I was like, oh, thank
Okay.
God, they're
Yeah.
they're not trawling and taking all the dolphins and everybody with it. No, wild caught doesn't mean anything. If it says Marine Stewardship Council, that's a logo you can trust. Or if it has the USDA certified organic logo, that's one you can trust. Or non-GMO verified. So there's a few different labels that are
So it's
there.
not farmed. So,
So right, so wild caught is not a farm raised,
right.
but it doesn't, well, it's hard to say. There is no independent entity that's actually overseeing it. So it's really unclear what where they're getting those fish. But like I said, if it says Marine Stewardship Council, then you know that that's good.
Yeah, I
So
interviewed a fisherman out in Maine,
oh,
and he talked a lot about what they have to go through with all
yeah,
the rules and
regulations.
regulations, and
Yeah.
it's a tough living. It's a tough
Any
living.
kind of farming, whether it's fish or vegetables or meat. I mean, it's so demanding. I
Yeah.
really I don't know how Dave has been able to do it for 35 years,
Yeah.
honestly. So yeah, so I analyzed all these labels. So that's in the course. I talk about all sorts of aspects of how to save money and shop for organic, all these tricks that I've learned over the years. And then, kind of what is the context of why is this allowed in the US that we have so many toxic chemicals allowed in our food and household products, many of which are banned in other countries because they want to protect
Right.
their citizens. And there's like 32 lessons that I go through in this course. And it's really easy. Like even my 89-year-old mom took the course and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. So she was able to go through it, and she's not particularly tech savvy, and she knew some of this information, but she learned a ton. And so that's my first one, and there's three tiers. So I have the course only option, I have the course plus an online community, and then the third one, which is my favorite, is the course, the community, and then 6 months of weekly live one on or not one-on-one group calls with me. So people that are working through the course, that might have certain questions, or I can really personally guide folks that, I'll see every week online. So that's the first. And then I've got how to create a non-toxic home. And I go through like room by room, bedroom. What are the toxins that you're potentially dealing with? What are the alternatives? Everything, including what's in your kitchen. What are you cooking with? Are you using a microwave? How do you get rid of plastic? It's so comprehensive. Like I said, I really have distilled so much of what I've learned into these courses. And I've tried to make it fun and easy to understand because I feel like that's sort of my gift of being able to take this complex information and confusing information and conflicting information and turn it into something that's easy to digest and say, okay, I can take this step-by-step path and I can make a difference in my own home and I can share this with other people if I want. And it's not, about reaching perfection because I don't live a perfectly green life. I
Right.
mean, there's things that I eat that I know aren't the best, but as long as I'm eating at least 80% of my diet is really good, then, maybe I'll have that potato chip once in a while or whatever that sweet thing is.
So now
So yeah,
are these courses downloadable or are they live? Like, are
so
you doing them
it's
live?
through this platform called Thinkific. So when you sign in, I don't know if you want me to show you. Do you want me to show you on the screen?
So
You give
let's
me
see. I
sharing
think I have to
capable
give you wait,
co-host.
I just put mine up. I think it's up here. Make co-host. There we go.
Okay, let me open up the food course. Okay, so we'll go to topics. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So here's, you sign in to the the URL. Once you've purchased the course, you get the sign in, you create your own password and everything. And so you'll come in and you'll see the first thing is how to use the course. So there's this little video that they provide. And then I have my own little video welcome. And then we talk about all the different things that are in this course. So we've got all of these lessons.
Wow. So are these recorded that someone can just
So
purchase it, or this is
some of them
okay.
I've done videos, but I've also done a lot of text. And then I've got the two ebooks in there, the food label one and the frugal foodie. So those are downloadable inside here.
Okay.
And there's a whole lesson on even like reducing plastic, clean drinking and bathing water, even meal planning with organic whole foods, how to, waste less food, understand greenwashing, and use the different digital apps that are available. Um, and then let's see, and then even having an action plan at the end, so you can, have different goals and have like a step-by-step process. And yeah, so I think I'm really excited about it.
Wow, this is you put a lot of work into
I
this.
did. And I have the non-toxic home one, and then there's the holistic health sort of beginner version. But I also have a compilation of all three of them together in one. That was the first one my mom did. She was like, wow, because I've got all three of the different components in there. And yeah, so I'm pretty psyched about that.
So talk to me about your greatest concern about toxicity.
Mm,
Is it our water? Is it because I mean, I have my own well
yes.
and but I've gone to people's houses and even through like those filters and everything, I still smell chlorine. They
Oof.
just mandated that fluoride is actually toxic and should not
Yes.
be in our water.
Yes,
So they're
exactly.
talking about removing it from
Yes.
our water system. But
Yeah.
is it food? Is it our water? What is it that we should be, if we're going to start somewhere, where should we
Yeah,
start?
so I'll tell you the top things that I would start with. So, and especially if people are on a budget, one of the first things you can do is check on and actually I have this in my course too, but the EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, has the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 list. And the Dirty Dozen are the fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticide residues. So those are the ones you definitely want to go certified organic. So strawberry seems to be at the top of that list
Yeah.
for some reason.
And there's a
And
huge difference between farm strawberries
oh gosh,
and
yes.
what you get in the supermarket. They don't even look the same or
Well,
taste the same.
I would say that's the case for all produce, even the
Yeah.
organic stuff in the supermarket. And here's one of the reasons why. The stuff at the supermarket is generally about a week old by the time it arrives at the store. So all of its, nutrients, a lot of them have depleted. Certainly the life force energy that you would get, when you're picking a strawberry and eating it is not there. And then trying to, get it out of season. Like I try not to, I don't even buy tomatoes, even if they're organic. I don't buy them, out of season because they're usually like totally tasteless. Um, so yeah, so the clean 15 are the ones that have not had a lot of pesticide spraying. So avocados, for example. So I'll buy my avocados conventional. Um, or onions. I typically buy certified organic onions, but avocados are one of the things that I will buy conventional. So that's one good spot
And
to
why would that be versus organic?
so the skin is so thick that even if they were sprayed with something that it generally doesn't penetrate through that thick skin into
Okay.
the part that you're eating. And I think the same thing for pineapples. That's a pretty
Okay.
rugged skin.
And bananas, would you say too?
I don't think bananas are on the clean 15. I think I would
Okay.
definitely pay the extra for the organic bananas. But here's the trick. There are companies, these big companies that sell both. And I think to myself, well, how do I know that X company has
Right.
been doing certified, or I mean, been doing conventional for so long, all of a sudden they've gotten into the organic game. Is that really an organic banana? I'm more likely to trust the smaller, still remaining independent companies, and I have a list of those actually
Yeah.
in the course too. Because so many good companies have been purchased by corporate entities. Now, that doesn't always mean that their products have gone downhill. You just don't quite know.
There's just a greater demand for organic too, so they want to
Right.
get on board
Right.
too.
And they know that they can get more money for it. And so
Yeah.
hopefully the big corporate organic ag is doing what they're supposed to. There's, been some concerns that like one of the big dairies hasn't really been adhering to the rules. And so if you can find the small, especially if you can find organic farmers in your area,
Right.
that would be the first place. And then growing your own as much as you can is always a great idea. But to answer your question, so starting with those things and then meat, if you can afford it, and it's really not that much more. But to go with the grass-fed, grass-finished, there are different options in mainstream supermarkets for that. Even if it's not organic, that is a heck of a lot better. If you can get organic chicken, that seems to be pretty available in many grocery stores. Wild caught fish, avoid the bigger fish like tuna and swordfish and the ones that live longer because they're going to have more of the heavy metals accumulated in them. I mean, you can have them from time to time, but I think they say, tuna fish once a week. But you can have wild caught salmon more often. Um, the next category, I would say anything that has perfume or a fragrance to it. So that's all of the plugins and so-called air
Oh,
fresheners.
bad.
I mean, really, all of the personal care products are scented. You can find the better ones that don't have those synthetic fragrances, and that's definitely something to avoid because not only does it have the, and it could be something like 200 chemicals to make up one perfume or fragrance, and they don't have to disclose what those ingredients are because that's protected under trade secrets. So that's a very slippery slope of you really don't know what you're getting. And I
Yeah,
can sniff those things out. I'm not chemically sensitive. However, because I've been doing this for so long and using these much cleaner products, my nose knows. So, for example, I'm standing down at the farm stand and you know that it's open air, right? I can smell somebody that pulls up in their car that's wearing cologne or perfume. I can smell them before they even come in.
right.
It's like that smell just wafts in. So, and then because there are so many people that are chemically sensitive, it's a good idea to not use that stuff anymore for your own sake, but also for them because it's so triggering. Um, so that would be another one. And then,
But one of the things that I
yeah.
remember, what was it? A very, very large grocery store chain got in trouble because they said grass fed.
Oh, but
And
it
it
wasn't.
wasn't because here's the trick.
Yeah.
Because they said they had access to grass.
Oh, for
So
Pete's sake. That's
the
ridiculous.
door was open in the
Yeah.
barn, but when they're all crammed in, they don't
So
even know they
that's,
can go out the door. And they
that's,
got in
I
big trouble.
Yeah. Was that poultry though, or beef?
No, this was beef. It's a
Really?
grass-fed beef and it's a
That's
national
horrible.
chain. Big, big, big one.
So, so that must have been that they were eating hay, but they weren't actually out on pasture. Because technically, grass-fed can mean that they're only eating hay,
All I heard was they got in
but they got
trouble
in trouble.
because
Yeah.
they weren't really
Yeah.
grass
It-
fed. It
yeah.
was the door was open, that they
See,
were
that's
supposed to be
that's typical
free
for
range.
poultry. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's typical for poultry and eggs. When it says free range, it means nothing. When it says
Free
pasture
range,
raised,
free range means nothing,
correct. Free range can mean they have a little door that, could open to the outdoors,
but they
but
don't know.
but they don't choose. And so here's a really maddening thing. When I first moved up here, there's a big poultry company here in Vermont that is still sold in natural food stores here, and they are totally conventional, and their chickens do not go outdoors, and I don't even think their turkeys go out anymore. And I called them up, and I was really sort of impressed that they were so honest back then. But I said, "Hey, so what kind of practices do you have with your chickens? Are they outside eating, bugs and grass and whatever?" And they said, "Well, they have access to the outdoors, but truthfully, they don't actually go out." And I thought, ugh. But now it's gotten even worse. And it just really pisses me off to think that that is sold in natural food stores as though it's something better, but it's really not. It's just, yeah, they're in on Vermont land, but their living conditions are not ideal. They're probably packed in. I'm hoping they don't debeak them and, they don't administer antibiotics because they're so clustered together that they can't move. But I don't buy that stuff anymore.
No, it's really tragic. And when when you think about our food and how deceptive the marketing is,
Well,
and
that's the whole
yeah,
greenwashing thing that's so
right,
maddening. Yeah. And
yeah.
so here's an interesting thing. So I did a free workshop last night and was talking about some of this stuff. And one of the women's remarked, and this is something I've heard for so many years, is like, oh gosh, everything's toxic. I feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And I said, I totally get that. And the reason I focus on food and household products and holistic health strategies is because those are things we have control over, right? We can't really do a lot about what's happening around us outdoors, but we do have 100% control over what we purchase. And every time we purchase that, we're telling that manufacturer we want more of that. And so there is a certain power, and certainly we've seen it with boycotts, that we have by what we choose to bring into our homes. And It certainly can be overwhelming, and people, tout themselves as experts, and often I find that they're working for some multi-level marketing company, and there's two brands that sort of like that chicken and turkey company. There's two brands of household products that are also in natural food stores that really shouldn't be. They both start with M. Um, they're terrible, in my opinion. And so I think, if you don't want to spend the time researching everything yourself, find somebody like me or, somebody else
Well,
that you
I
know.
know the company that you're talking about, and it's weird because their produce tastes good. Like I don't know what they're
Oh, I'm
putting
not
in
sure what,
it.
I don't think we're talking about the same
Oh,
company, 'cause these two companies only sell like soaps and cleaning products and
oh! I
that
thought
stuff.
you were talking about for the local, um, the chickens
Oh,
and
yeah, no,
turkeys.
no. Well,
Okay,
yes, I am talking about that with the M,
yeah,
ironically. That's the one
yeah,
that I'm talking about.
yeah. So
Yeah,
they've done a nice job marketing themselves,
they certainly have.
and the quality of what you think you're eating because the flavor of it is tends to be really good, and they charge a premium.
They do. And that's what I find so ridiculous because they're not doing anything better than, maybe they're not as bad as Purdue or
Yeah,
whoever the other one leading
yeah,
chicken producer is. But yeah. Um, let's see, there was one other. Oh, so I think one of the things that I like people to understand too is that in addition to the food and the household products, we have to figure out a way to manage all of this stress that we're experiencing, right? And so that's why the holistic health strategies become so important. And so one of the things that I always start people whenever I do a retreat is we talk about mindfulness and what that is and how do you actually be mindful at a time when you're really stressed out. And there's so many different great holistic tools that we have that we can use to thrive and try to avoid pharmaceuticals and doctors as much as possible. So I, for many, many years, have used, homeopathy and medicinal herbs and Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and, as you know, and I know you're into all this kind of stuff, anything new that comes across, I'm like, ooh, let me check that out. So yeah, and I'm a former, massage therapist and energy healer. So I think I have sort of an aptitude for embracing that kind of stuff. But I think those are important to balance, some of the stress and frustration that we can feel when we're trying to navigate through all of these different choices and, pick the best food. But I'll tell you, it really works, right? I mean, knock on wood, Dave and I don't get sick. And when I first met Dave, he wasn't eating his own food. He didn't really know about the household product stuff. And I noticed that every fall, kind of at the end of his season, he would get sick. He'd get bronchitis or something. And that was for a couple of years until he started, eating and I had certainly cleaned out the household once we moved in together. And now we both have an amazing immune system. Neither one of
yeah.
us takes pharmaceuticals. We avoid the doctors as much as we possibly can. Um, so,
So
and
it's
I've seen,
interesting because I eat that way too, and I try my best, and I also pray over my food.
yes, that's a good technique. I do that.
Because what people need to understand is when an animal is killed, there's hormones, there's all kinds
Yes,
of stuff and fear that's put into
yes,
that animal
yes,
through their own process, as
yes.
even as gentle as they can be.
You're right.
And
You're
so
absolutely right.
I put an end, your food, whatever you have on your table, has passed through how many hands? The people who picked it, the
Yeah,
people who prepared it, and the people who delivered it,
that's a really good
and
point.
all of those things. So
Yeah.
you want to be mindful of that and balancing out and raising the frequency. Like I always thank the food, thank the
Yes,
farmers,
yes.
raise the vibration. It takes like just a couple seconds. And
That's a
and I've
really
had
great
my daughter go,
suggestion.
"Are you praying over your food again?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." I just put my hands, or if you're Reiki trained, or just send
Yeah.
it energy, send it love.
Yeah. And gratitude, right? Having
Gratitude.
gratitude for the animal, having
Yeah.
gratitude for the farmer and, everybody. like you said, every step of the way until it gets onto your table.
Right. But
That's a really great
I
idea.
had an episode, and so I know I was told I shouldn't eat corn, and especially for
Oh,
me, it's just
okay.
not a
Not
great
good.
for my own digestion. I don't tolerate it. And I went
Yep.
through a period of about 2 months where I just craved popcorn.
Oh, wow.
I just I couldn't stop eating popcorn. And here's the
How
crazy
interesting.
part. So I ate I was eating all like I would eat an entire bag in a sitting. I don't know why I was craving it, but and I
You
thought
just
I was
needed it.
buying good popcorn, but it's all most of it, a lot of it has been genetically modified
Yes.
seeds, and a
Yes.
lot of it, unless it says organic, has been
Right.
doused in um
Seed oils
well seed
or
the
cooked in seed oil.
what is it from Monsanto.
Oh, glyphosate.
Glyphosate. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So I
Yes,
wasn't
indeed.
feeling well and I was like, what's going on? I had someone who does some naturopathic work check me. She goes, you are the most toxic, like overload of not
Oh,
glutathione,
glyphosate. Oh, gosh.
glyphosate in your body. Your gut is like basically you're not absorbing nutrients. Stop taking all your vitamins because it's just going right through. You're not
Yeah, and
absorbing.
glyphosate is such a nasty chemical. It's the main ingredient in Roundup,
Yeah.
right? Which people are still buying in hardware stores. It's still unfortunately used in Vermont. I really have wanted it to be banned for the longest time, but conventional dairy farms are still using it with this so-called no-till method. There's the organic no-till and then there's the conventional, which that what that means is that they'll plant, let's say, alfalfa in their cornfield, right? And then they'll plant the corn seeds into that alfalfa. And then that corn being genetically modified to resist the glyphosate, so that's called Roundup Ready,
Mhm.
they spray the entire field with glyphosate, and sometimes they do it more than once. And I've seen it happen because the whole field turns orange. Have you noticed that in the spring here?
Oh no. I
Yeah,
didn't
so
know
you'll
to look
know
for
when a
that.
field has been sprayed with glyphosate, it turns orange, and all that alfalfa is then dead, but the corn is perfectly green and growing up through it.
Wow.
And and what's worse is there's this, I don't know how new this is, but there's something that they do, it's called desiccation. So with grain, it's like wheat or soy or barley, they spray it with glyphosate once again right before they harvest it because it dries it out. So imagine, all the breads that are conventional have an extra dose of glyphosate. And finally, Monsanto, who then got bought by Bayer, was held accountable for at least one case where a groundskeeper had developed cancer because he had been exposed to glyphosate so much. And he won a big settlement, which is great, except, he's dying.
Nothing's
Um,
changed.
Nothing has changed. It's still legally allowed. Everybody knows, or everybody in the government and,
Yeah.
the industry knows how toxic this stuff is, and it's still being used. And it's just it's craziness.
Yeah, and for someone who is so mindful about everything that I put in, that I literally like I had she was like you are I'm iron deficient, like I had to go
Oh,
through, I have
wow.
to take like six different
To repair the
to
damage from that?
repair the damage. Like I'm going through a whole process of
Oh
how
my
much
gosh.
it destroyed my gut.
So
I
now
was
you know,
shocked.
if you
Yeah.
ever want to eat corn again, make sure it's certified organic.
Right. And now I'm going through this. I
It's
have
a tough lesson though.
homeopathic chemical detox,
Oh
getting it
gosh.
out of my system. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a
Oh,
process.
so here's a cool thing. So, I interviewed this woman yesterday for my Green Living Now podcast, which is about to launch, and she is a leading brain specialist, and she was talking about the benefits of jumping on a trampoline, even a mini tramp. And so I'm going to get one because even though I walk the dogs every day, I was like, oh wow, you get cardio benefits. You clean your lymph. So where all that
Yes.
stuff, all those toxins get stored, all of our bodies and the different lymph glands, it sort of shakes it out of you. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool, because I mean, essentially our bodies are designed to heal and designed to detox. However, if we take in so much, like you
Right.
experienced, you need a little extra help. And so one of the things is the bouncing, but also infrared saunas are great, as if you
Mhm.
can sweat that stuff out. Um, Drinking enough hydrogen, well, we're getting one of those hydrogen water makers. Do you have one of those?
I have a portable one, but I haven't
Yeah,
been
that's what we're
using
gonna
it.
get.
I need to go back and start
I would
using it
try that
again.
too, because I think that'll help flush out some of that
Yeah.
glyphosate and other stuff. Yeah. I mean, so it's
Crazy.
kind of life in the modern world, right? We sort of live and learn, and hopefully, it's you didn't get too much damage from that experience that you're able to
Right.
repair and you're basically healthy, so most likely you'll be able to, cleanse that stuff out of your system.
Yeah, I'm working on it, but I mean, I could see the damage it's done to my body. I was shocked.
That's really
I was
disturbing.
truly shocked. And so we really, really need to be careful about what. And the other thing is the
Yeah.
products that we put on our skin.
Yes.
Um, endocrine disruptors,
Right.
phthalates, things that
Yes.
I mean, it's
Oh,
insane.
so just thinking about some of the most toxic things to get rid of, you
Yeah,
just reminded me of, believe it or not, food packaging. So I used to think that the paper cups were a decent option to put my coffee in if I bought coffee someplace, right? Especially the places that have
right.
organic. Come to find out, there's a plastic coating on the inside of that cup that makes it so that the coffee doesn't, soak through into the paper. Pizza boxes are loaded with, I don't remember if it was BPA or phthalates, but then styrofoam. You know
Yeah,
how many hot foods are served in styrofoam containers or microwavable plastic? That should not even be a thing. I mean, I don't even use a microwave, but if
no,
you
I
do,
don't
don't
either.
use the microwavable plastic or any kind of plastic. Switch it to glass or a plate. Um, but all of these different food packaging and the plastic wrap and,
Paper s-
Tupperware.
paper straws.
Oh
So
God.
everyone
Yes.
went on about replacing the
Right.
plastic straw with the paper straw. The
Yes.
glue that they use in the paper straw is toxic.
Right, and it probably has the same kind of plastic lining, whether it's BPA like inside of cans. The inside of a can has been treated with this chemical so that
Right.
the metal doesn't leach into the food, but then you're getting the chemical leaching into the food. Yeah, I mean, trying to avoid plastic, like never drinking out of plastic water bottles. Bring your own, stainless steel or glass. Those are some really easy tips to avoid a lot of
Right.
chemicals.
Yeah.
And don't use Teflon,
No.
those plastic kinds of cookware.
The best
Stainless
thing that I
steel.
wish someone had introduced me to is cast iron.
Except for this.
Oh
So here's
no.
here's the caveat with cast iron. Cast iron is good. However, if you're menopausal or a man, you don't excrete the iron. So you have to be careful how much you're using it. But in your case,
Oh,
I think you said you were iron deficient.
yeah.
So for you, it's probably just fine.
Okay.
But
Because
it's
I
good
love
to know.
cooking with them.
Yes, it's fine as long as you aren't menopausal because the problem with when we're menopausal, we're no longer shedding that in our menstrual cycle. And so it can build up.
Interesting.
And there's a condition, Dave's sister, at least one of them, maybe more, has this condition that's sort of a high iron, that's a genetic thing. And so they have to be
Oh
very careful
wow.
about using iron stuff too.
See, who knew? I thought I was doing something good. I just got
Well,
rid
and
of
in
a
your
bunch of
case, it
pots.
is. In your
Yeah,
case, it is. I mean, stainless steel and glass are inert, so you don't have to worry about those. But, a little bit of iron is fine. In your case, maybe iron frequently is fine until you get your iron levels up.
yeah,
And then making sure you have adequate vitamin D3. I know that
yes.
was one of the big things that was missing for people that got COVID. It's a great, I
Well,
think
anyone who lives in the Northeast is not getting enough sun.
that is
Just
correct. That
period.
is correct. Except for maybe in the summer if you're outdoors a lot. But yeah, I think I just had my blood tested and I think I was within the normal range, but I was on the low side. I'm like, oh shoot, I got to start taking vitamin D again because I'm not getting the sun,
Right.
producing it on my skin.
And it's interesting because I've also been learning about the sunscreens stuff,
Oh,
and
yes.
that what they're saying is sunglasses
Are not good.
are not good because what's happening is when you see the sun, your body regulates to how much sun your body's getting, and
Right, you'll
you're you sh
squint.
and you don't burn. But when
That's
you
true
have
too.
sunglasses on and then you put this toxic mixture on your body, that's what's
Exactly.
actually causing cancer.
Yes, that is true. I mean, there is some truth to, you don't want to let your skin burn. You don't want
Right,
to
right, right,
become a
right,
lobster. So if you they say like 15 to 20 minutes of exposure without anything on is pretty good for developing the vitamin D3. Then you might want to put some, extra clothing on so that you don't burn. If you're going to be like on a boat all day. I
right,
do have a non-toxic sunscreen that I like. Caribbean Soul, I believe is the brand. And I'll take that with us when we go down to the Caribbean in January because I know we're going to be out in the sun a lot and, I don't want to burn. So I
right.
think there is definitely the reality that burning your skin can lead to skin cancer for sure. But you're absolutely right that the toxins in the sunscreen are nasty. And then the other thing about sunglasses I heard was it's deceptive because you have the darkness and it makes your eyes open more, and that's what lets the sun into the sides normally you would be squinting because the sun is too bright. And the squinting is protecting you. But if we're sort of keeping our eyes open with the sunglasses, even the best lenses, um,
Right.
'cause it still comes through the sides.
And I wear contact lenses. I have since
Oh,
I
yeah.
was in high school. They're
Yep.
tinted.
Oh,
They have a slight tint to them. So they actually
huh.
prevent
So
you
is that
from
protective?
getting in. It's like wearing sunglasses 24 hours,
Oh,
like
that's
whenever you're awake.
interesting.
So
Okay.
that's so I need to make time to not wear my
Right.
contacts and just blur my way through the world,
Oh,
not
yeah.
trip on anything.
And
But
so,
it's, yeah.
what about glasses? Do you not wear glasses
Well, I have
instead
to
to
wear
keep
the
your eyes at
glasses,
rest?
but if I decide in the summertime, I'll sit out on my porch
Oh, I
and
see
I'll
what you're
go
saying.
out
You're out in the
and I'll
sun.
take my glasses off and
Right.
no contacts and just
Yep.
sun gaze or at least try and get some sun,
Yep.
natural sun without the contact
Right,
lenses.
because you're not getting anything coming through those lenses.
Right, right.
Interesting. I wonder about the plastic for the lenses too. I haven't really looked into
Oh,
that.
I'm sure that's an issue too. And I talked to my son. He just had the
Oh,
surgery,
the laser?
the laser, because he and I have
Yeah,
very
Dave did
similar
that.
prescription, and trying to get my nerve up to see if that's something that I want to do.
Dave did that when it was first being done. It
Yeah,
was it was painful but very quick. Like it
yeah,
was painful for a number of hours and then it's amazing how quickly the eyes heal.
yeah.
So I'll be curious if your son has that same
Yeah,
experience.
no, he said he loved it. He was
Oh,
happy.
good.
The only thing is, and my fear is night vision, so in some
Oh,
people's case, it can impact their night vision.
oh, is that right?
Yeah. Mine is worse when I'm driving and it's raining at night.
Yeah, same
It
with
gets
Dave,
really glary.
actually. Yeah.
So I worry
Hmm.
about that. That's the only thing that's really been
Well,
holding me
are there
back.
special glasses that you can wear at night for those kind of conditions that will help?
I don't know. I can find out.
I bet
I
there
can
is.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can, as we could talk for hours
I know
about
we could.
all of these things. And I mean, I just learned so much just from hearing you talk about some of these things.
Awesome.
So, I find this, I would love to have you back and we can pick different
Absolutely.
topics. So
Sure.
for people who want to take your courses,
Yes.
and also I highly recommend if you decide to come to Vermont, visit the farm. Amy does an amazing job. It's very interactive. People come in vacation and they bring their children,
Yeah.
and it's really a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give you the link for the courses so you can put that in the show notes if you'd like. And
Yeah, especially, I think about like my children, well, my daughter just got married and my son is getting married in about a year and a half. And I think about their lives and how much more toxic it
yes.
is.
And
And
actually, that's the audience I'm really looking to bring into this
yeah,
topic because the younger folks are not as aware, and especially if they want to have children.
yeah,
I mean, that was when I had my big aha moment was when I was pregnant. And I feel like there's so much that we're being bombarded by that it's better to know and be able to prevent
yeah,
exposure than
yeah.
to feel like, oh, geez.
So do you help people with detox at all? Like getting toxic
I
things out of
haven't
their body?
specialized in detox. I can help them as far as choosing better products and food. As
Right.
far as the actual physical process of detox, I wouldn't consider myself an expert on that.
Yeah. Okay.
There
So
are
it'd be
others
good to
that are
find
doing
out
it.
a naturopath because your conventional
Yeah,
doctor would not know for the most
correct.
part.
Yeah, they wouldn't
And
even think it was a
functional,
thing.
yeah, functional medicine specialist,
Yeah.
someone who you can work with who really is an expert in detoxing your system.
Yes. And
Because
actually, I
there's,
believe I know some folks that
yeah,
I could recommend.
yeah, because it's important for people to understand you can get it out of your body, but then you need to take certain things to carry it out of your system.
Right. Yeah, and I know one of the things like with heavy metals, they say eating seaweed actually helps bind with the heavy metals and take it out of your
Yeah.
system. Just like the infrared saunas when or just sweating in general, exercise, especially if it's sweating, creates sweat, drinking enough water. Yeah, so
Yeah, and be
and there's
careful
different
about your
supplements that
water.
people can take too.
Yeah, be careful with your water
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
plastic,
get it tested if you're, well, so here's a quick little tip. If you're on a municipal system, you can go to the ewg.org site and there's a little database in there. You can stick your zip code in and it will tell you what is in your the municipal system water. So it'll tell you all the toxins that are in there. And that helps you figure out what kind of filter you need. Because I'm guessing that the folks that you said you still tasted or smelled chlorine might be
really
using something
strong.
like a Brita filter, which doesn't do a whole lot, although it is supposed to take out chlorine. But I used to use this really good brand, Lakota Scientific, that is a mom and pop company, and they can actually help customize the filtration that you need for your particular system. So I'll give you that link
Yeah.
too, if
And
folks are
just because I've learned this too, just because you have a well doesn't
right.
mean
Doesn't mean it's
because
always
if you
clean.
have farms nearby,
Correct.
if there could be anything coming in
Any
through
industry.
industry
Yep.
nearby, that all gets leached into your soil.
And for people, because we have a really good well, but here in Vermont, we have really mineral rich water, which is great to drink, but it's not great for your pipes. So most of us were told to use a softener. The typical softener pellets are sodium, really high salt, because they're so much cheaper. We pay the much more to get the potassium ones. And those do a great job at, reducing the amount of minerals and also giving you some potassium, which isn't a bad thing to
Actually,
drink.
that's really good to know because I had looked into a filter just for mine because I do have high iron content
Yeah, so the
and
softener will
calcium.
take that out actually.
Yeah, my shower head has to
The
be
chlorine.
removed and soaked in vinegar
Yeah.
probably every 2 to 3 months. It
So you
clogs. I
don't have a
see.
softener in your
No, no, I
Oh,
don't.
okay. So that's yeah, so you can go either with a whole house filter or a softener. I think yeah, it's probably cheaper to actually to go with a softener, but it might be, better to go with a whole house filter ideally.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to have to deal with having, because actually the cost of buying these darn pellets, potassium pellets, stacks up.
I bet. I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel we should touch upon? Because we kind of hit a lot of different
Yeah,
topics.
I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I think the one other thought I would throw out there is to consider if you have children in the home and pets, that those creatures are the most vulnerable as well as pregnant women. So if you're thinking about getting pregnant or you already have children or you have pets in your home, they're exposed. And, if we think about how much dogs can smell, so much more intensely than we can, imagine what that, laundry that's just come out of the dryer that's reeking of all the perfumes smells like to them. Our little dog sleeps under the covers with us, and if it was just riddled with perfume, I would imagine that that would have some kind of an impact.
Yeah, your regular laundry detergent, the big brands are
Yes,
toxic.
totally.
And the
And
dryer sheets
oh
as
gosh, yeah,
well.
get rid of those.
And that's like got forever chemicals on them. So
Yes.
when you wash your clothes in it, like the smell does not come off. I mean,
Right.
there's
And it coats
multiple,
them.
multiple, and it coats them. So
Yeah.
it's multiple, multiple washing. So whatever you do, do your best to, to really look at what you're putting on your clothes that are it's going on your skin.
Right. And actually, that leads me to one last thought. The whole microplastic issue from polyester and synthetic fabrics, that is not an area that I have mastered yet. I do not have a lot of organic cotton
Right.
clothes. I do have organic cotton bedding and organic wool comforters and all that kind of stuff. But anytime I see organic cotton clothes on sale, I scoop them
So
up
I'm
because I'm
glad you
trying to
brought
move in that direction.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because as someone who's an energy worker, one of the things that I've been learning about is the frequency of fabrics.
Oh, interesting.
The highest frequency fabric is linen.
Oh, yep, I've heard that
If
too.
you
And hemp,
can,
hemp must be pretty high too.
I don't know about hemp, but they
But you're
said
right. Linen,
cotton
I
and
know.
wool.
Yes, yes,
So it's hemp, wool, and cotton are up there. I know that they're
yes.
making sheets and things about bamboo with bamboo, which is very
I
soft,
don't
but I
love,
don't
I
know
don't love
enough
those.
about I don't know enough about the frequency of it. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, the hospitals at the turn of the century in the 1900s used 100% linen sheets.
Yes.
And they would take the hospital beds and bring them out into the courtyard and put them in the sun,
Oh, wow.
anyone who was sick. So you want to, I have not, I just bought all new sheets. I
Yeah.
decided to go 100% cotton, really good quality, cotton comforter. I couldn't find linen, but you can boil linen. You can, in hot
Mm,
water and to
right.
soften it, you have to work with it a little bit in the beginning, but it's a very high frequency fabric. So
Yeah,
think
I like
about,
linen too.
yeah, think about what you're putting on your body.
Right. And if you ever see the organic cotton stuff on sale, scoop it up.
Yeah,
That's really good. And then, so one of the issues around that, besides all the things that we've discussed, is the lint that is created in the dryer.
yeah.
So all of those plastic, polyester, this and that's all breaking down into microplastics. So some of that's washing out into wherever your, washing machine water goes. We know that our oceans are absolutely overloaded with plastic. So all of the wildlife in the oceans are eating it. It's, doing damage to the coral reefs and all that stuff. So the best we can do is try to really eliminate plastic everywhere we can
Yes.
to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Well, words to live by.
Yeah, exactly. Words to thrive by,
Words
right?
to thrive by. Exactly. Well, Amy, thank you so much. And I hope this
Oh, it
is
was
the
my
first of
pleasure.
many interviews because we could do a deep dive in any of those
Oh,
topics.
totally.
And if you're interested in these courses, we'll have the links below with the information. And if you decide to come to Vermont, please come by. It's a really a lot of fun
A
to
great
do the
state to
farm
visit.
tour. It's a
Thank you.
beautiful state. I pinch
Especially in the
myself.
summer. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
me too. I used to
I
think I
know.
lived on vacation all the time when I first moved up
I
here.
feel that way too. And then people like, well, how do you get things? How do you go shopping and everything? I said, you know what? I find out how little I really need,
Well,
right?
that's a very good strategy.
And
Yeah.
then, and I get rid of a lot. And then whatever
Yes,
I need, I plan for.
absolutely.
Or I buy online.
Yeah.
There are certain
Yeah.
things you can't, or if I can't take, an hour to drive to Burlington,
Yep. I
I
totally
give me
hear
things.
that. I
But
try to
it's really
coordinate it with other trips out that
Yeah,
direction.
and
Yeah.
just spend the day. But, really watch what you're consuming,
Right.
with things because we really are so impulsive as a, and humanity is so impulsive and there's so much.
Yeah, we want that quick fix, that quick,
Yeah,
that's why so many people, go to their doctors and say, I've got XYZ symptoms, give me a pill. That's not a great strategy, as
no,
many people have learned, because then you end up having to take something to offset the symptoms that you're getting from that pill, and you never get to the actual issue, like what is causing this problem. So,
exactly. Getting to
yeah,
the root cause. Well, Amy,
exactly.
thank you again.
My
And
pleasure,
so
Lisa.
it's
It was so fun.
greenlivingnow.com is her
Correct.
website, and we'll have all the links below. And thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.